The forest was silent that morning, too silent. David walked slowly through the snowy taiga, his boots crunching against the frozen ground. He had been a forest recorder for 15 years now, documenting wildlife and tracking changes in this vast wilderness. But today felt different. The air was heavy, almost waiting for something to happen. He pulled his jacket tighter against the cold wind and checked his watch. It was nearly noon, but the sky hung low and gray, making everything feel like twilight. The tall trees stood like silent witnesses, their branches heavy with snow. That's when he saw her. An old woman was moving through the clearing ahead. But it wasn't just her presence that made David stop in his tracks. It was what she was carrying. On her back was a bag so enormous that it seemed impossible for anyone to carry, let alone an elderly woman who looked to be in her 70s. The bag was blue and bulging, tied at the top with thick rope. It looked heavy, very heavy. So heavy that the woman was bent forward almost completely, her whole body straining under the weight. Her small frame seemed to disappear beneath the massive load. David felt his heart begin to race. Something wasn't right here. He called out to her, "Ma'am, are you all right?" The woman didn't stop. She didn't even turn around. She just kept walking, step by slow step, her breath coming out in white clouds in the freezing air. Her feet dragged slightly through the snow, leaving deep tracks behind her. David quickened his pace. "Ma'am, please wait!" What could possibly be in that bag? And why was she carrying it alone through this frozen wilderness? Finally, the woman paused. She didn't turn to face him, but she stopped moving. Her shoulders rose and fell with deep, exhausted breaths. David could see her hands gripping the rope that held the bag on her back. Her fingers were red from the cold, trembling slightly. "Please," David said gently as he approached. "Let me help you. That bag looks very heavy." For a long moment, the woman said nothing. Then slowly, she turned her head just enough for David to see the side of her weathered face. Her skin was lined with age and hardship. Her eyes, when they met his, were filled with something he couldn't quite name. Sadness, maybe, or determination. "You want to help?" she asked, her voice rough and quiet. "Yes," David said immediately. "Whatever you're carrying, wherever you're going, you shouldn't be doing this alone." The woman studied him for a moment longer. Then she nodded just once. But what she said next sent a chill down David's spine. "First," she said, "you should know what's inside." She carefully lowered herself to her knees, the massive bag settling onto the snowy ground beside her. Her movements were slow and deliberate, as if every motion caused her pain. David moved to help her, but she waved him away. "Just look," she said, her fingers working at the knot that held the bag closed. David's mind raced with possibilities. Was it something illegal? Something dangerous?
Out here in the taiga, far from any town or city, anything was possible.
His training told him to be careful, to perhaps call for backup. But something about the woman's eyes made him stay. The knot came loose. The woman pulled the opening wide. David leaned forward and looked inside. His breath caught in his throat. For several seconds, he couldn't speak. He couldn't move. He could only stare at what lay before him. The bag was filled with bottles. Dozens and dozens of plastic bottles. But these weren't empty. Each one contained something precious. Water, clean, clear water. But that wasn't all. Between the bottles were wrapped packages. David could see bread, carefully protected in plastic bags. There were cans of food, warm blankets folded tight, medicine boxes, children's clothes, small and neatly packed. "I don't understand," David finally managed to say. The woman sat back on her heels, her breath still labored from the effort of carrying her load. "There's a village," she said quietly. 15 miles that way." She pointed deeper into the forest. "Very small, very poor. The winter has been hard this year. Their well froze. The supply truck couldn't get through because of the storms." David felt something tighten in his chest. "So you're taking them what they need," the woman finished. "Yes. But why you?" David asked. "Where did you get all this? And why are you carrying it alone?" The woman smiled then, just a little. It transformed her face, making her look younger somehow despite the exhaustion written in every line. "I live in a cabin about 10 miles back," she explained. "I've been collecting these things for weeks, a little at a time, saving what I could." She touched the bag gently. "I know the people in that village. I lived there once, many years ago. They have children there, elderly people. They need help and I can give it." "But 15 miles, David said. "In this cold, with this weight, you could hurt yourself. You could." He didn't finish the sentence, but they both knew what he meant. The woman's expression grew serious. "Young man, I am 73 years old. I have lived through things you cannot imagine. I have seen winters that would make this one look gentle. And I have learned one very important truth." She paused, and David waited, hanging on her words. "The only thing heavier than this bag," she said, "would be knowing I could have helped and didn't try." The words hit David like a physical force. He looked at the woman with new eyes. Here, in this frozen wilderness, bent under an impossible burden, she was showing more strength than he had ever seen in anyone. "Let me carry it," he said. "Please." The woman shook her head. "It's not your burden." "Then let's share it," David insisted. "I have rope. We can make a harness. 2 of us can carry it much easier than 1. For the first time, the woman's eyes grew soft. "You would do that?" "I would be honored," David said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Together, they fashioned a system where they could both help carry the massive bag. David radioed his station explaining that he would be delayed. He didn't tell them why. This felt like something private, something sacred. As they walked through the snowy forest, the woman told David stories. About the village, about the families who lived there, about the children, who would squeal with delight at the small toys she had hidden at the bottom of the bag. She spoke with such love, such genuine care, that David felt his eyes grow warm despite the cold. When they finally reached the village as the sun was setting, the people came out to meet them. Their faces showed shock, then joy, then gratitude so profound that several of them wept openly. The children did indeed squeal, just as the woman had predicted. They hugged her legs and called her Grandmother Anna, even though David learned she wasn't related to any of them by blood. As David prepared to leave, Anna touched his arm. "Thank you," she said simply. "No," David replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for reminding me what really matters." He walked back through the dark forest alone, but he didn't feel alone. He felt changed. He had started the day as a forest recorder, documenting trees and wildlife. He ended it having witnessed something far more important. He had seen that true strength isn't about being young or powerful. It's about caring enough to try, even when the burden seems impossible. It's about looking at a need and saying, "I can help with that." That night, lying in his bed, David couldn't stop thinking about Anna and her enormous blue bag, about the choice she had made to carry that weight through the frozen wilderness. And he understood something he had never quite grasped before. The heaviest things we carry are never the physical burdens. They're the moments we choose not to act, the help we decide not to give, the love we keep to ourselves when others need it most. Anna had chosen differently, and in doing so, she had shown David what it truly means to be strong. The next morning, David woke with a new sense of purpose. He had his own bags to pack now, his own journey to make, because some burdens, he now understood, are meant to be carried. Not because they're light, but because carrying them makes us more human. And that's the heaviest truth of all.